Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahavityam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat. So, we have been discussing the divine qualities, the demonic qualities, etc. The sattvic, rajasic, tamasic types of shraddha actions. So, in this sequence, we need to understand how the divine qualities and the demonic qualities are defined. What is the basis for categorization? Because nowadays there is this tendency to say that, oh, you are judging, you are too judgmental, and then there is empathy, and then there is justification of various qualities that are classified in the Shastra as demonic qualities. There is a lot of justification for that, saying that it is because of trauma, it is because of this, it is because of that, and the whole approach to dealing with categorizing things as pure, impure, divine, demonic, good, bad, dharmic, adharmic. No, this whole process of categorization has become a very hazy and a confusing thing, and the whole approach is very uh, mushy. It's not very crisp, and there is a problem now. People don't want to commit to a position. This is okay, that is also okay. Maybe, I remember one Swamiji went to New Zealand to meet with the Indian diaspora there to give some satsang. So he was talking with the youngsters, and when he came back, he was furious about the way they are thinking. He says, whatever I ask them, they say could be, maybe, probably. No, they are not ready to commit to an opinion. They are not ready to commit to an idea. They are not ready to take a stand on anything. This is a very dangerous thing happening here, because then what happens is, during times of crisis, during certain important moments in our life where we will have to make decisions, we will not be able to command the required inner resources to take us further in a direction that is beneficial to us and to those who are connected with us. That comes only from taking a stance. Whenever we have clarity, we will have less choices. If there is a lot of choice, that means there is no clarity. This could be, that could be, that could be, maybe this, maybe that. It's called shamshaya. It's kind of doubt. Shamshaya is not just a doubt of lack of shraddha. Shamshaya is also not being able to arrive at a conclusion that will drive us in a decisive direction of action. That's why in Bhagavad Gita it comes there is no happiness for them in this life, there is no happiness for them in the afterlife. There is no happiness for them in this life because they are not able to stay committed to any goal, and they are constantly questioning and doubting, changing. They are not able to attain any happiness in the afterlife because they are not able to pursue dharma purushartha. They don't have shraddha. If they are not able to pursue even visible results, how are they going to pursue non-verifiable results promised by the Shastra? So it's said like that. So in this context, understanding the fundamental principle by which we categorize things as things to be followed, things to be taken, things to be adhered to, things to be encouraged, or things to be discouraged, things to be eschewed, things to be rejected, and things to stop ourselves from indulging in. These two categories. That is what is Daiva Asura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga. Chapter 16 of Bhagavad Gita deals with this. Daivi Sampat, Asuri Sampat. Divine wealth, Asuri, not divine wealth. Right? We have discussed it before. And we will focus within those qualities, we will focus on two qualities, Tejaha and Dhriti. Because everything else are very commonly discussed, but these two things are not discussed very often. But before that, we will go to the definition. What is this Daivi Sampat? What is this Asuri Sampat? The 5th verse in 16th chapter deals with this. Daivi Sampad Vimokshaya Nibandhaya Asuri Mata. That is the definition. The divine nature is that which leads to liberation. The not divine nature is considered something that leads you to inevitable bondage. Right? It leads you to bondage. And then the Lord says, Ma Shuchaha, don't worry, Arjuna, Sampadam Daivim Abhijato Asi Pandava. You are born to the divine nature. You are born with the divine nature. Now you may say, and also there is another context where it says, Prakritim Nyanti Bhutani. The natural qualities, the inherent qualities of a person drive them towards thinking and action. What is the use of control? It says. So they always misquote the context. The context there is to say that one must embrace one's inner nature, inner tendencies, and accept them, accept one's current position of evolution in order to decide the course of sadhana. That is the context. It is not to say, it is not a fatalism. It is not that, oh, this is my inner nature, I am like this. Astrology people do this, I had a friend, so that guy is very funny. So he went and talked something to the boss in the wrong time, in the wrong way, a wrong thing, and he got fired. And I asked him, man, what happened? And he said, today Rahu was in my second house, so that's why I talk like this. See, you are an astrologer. You are seeing today Rahu is in my second house. So are you not supposed to shut up the entire day and not talk? And you choose the day when Rahu is sitting in your tongue. On that day, you decide to go and talk a wrong thing to the boss in the wrong tone. No, then they justify this. So if this is, the whole point is not to justify that, oh, this is my prakriti, I am ADHD, I have had a trauma, I have had a bad childhood. Oh, this, like how they show the bad guy in some movies, all his actions are justified. Somehow they justify it because the society forced them to do it. I remember some journalist, leftist, anti-national journalist, after the 1990s, Kashmiri riots, after that, they are telling the Muslims and the terrorists and the extremists in Kashmir, they were forced to massacre the Pandits because the Pandits were dominating every sector. Because the Pandits were dominating in every sector, they felt oppressed, and that's why they massacred them. Reliv, Galiv, ya Chaliv. They told them to get out of the Kashmir. The whole Kashmiri Pandit massacre was justified by this journalist, telling this is why they did it, because they felt oppressed and they felt dominated by them. Kashmiri Pandits, they have a very Vedic lifestyle, they have a very disciplined heritage and everything, and so obviously they are more intelligent and they dominated everywhere. So, and because they felt dominated, they decided to do this. This kind of socio-economic kind of explanation, while the whole thing was absolutely religiously motivated. It is pure, raw religious intolerance. That's what killed Kashmiri Pandits, right? And they justify like this. So, but anyway, this is in a large scale. So we always try to find an alibi. This is how it is. This is why I did that. So that is, so the Prakritim Yanti Bhutani, the individuals are driven by their own programming, is not for this purpose. It is not for justifying a demonic quality. Similarly, when the Lord says, Arjuna, you are born to the divine nature, it does not mean then you check, oh, he is born to the divine nature, Duryodhana is born to the demonic nature. Similarly, I am having all these qualities because I am born to demonic nature. Nothing can be done. This is how it is. It is not for that. It is for telling, if I find more demonic qualities in me on a certain area of functioning, it means I have to understand them. So the whole point of this is to understand where I stand, to understand what is divine, what is not divine, and to understand where I am, what is my situation, so that what steps I can take in order to avoid the demonic track, in order to avoid the not so divine track, and in order to develop the divine qualities. So that is the whole point. The entire teaching is centered on Purushartha. We keep on repeating this because we are always, the word karma has gotten more marketing than the word Purushartha. So because of that, people always tend to say, my karma, my karma. Nobody says my Purushartha. So the whole point of understanding what are my inherent qualities and which qualities are divine, which qualities are not divine, is in order to embrace and encourage the divine qualities and to eschew and avoid the demonic qualities, and to understand what level of effort I need in what domain of my thinking and action in order to improve myself in the divine track, Purushartha. Right? So that is the whole point approach of this. So the definition is based on what liberates me, what binds me. That is the definition. The same definition we also see in Yoga Sutra. What is, klesha? The cycle of klesha and karma. What is it? That which binds you to the cycle of life. That in Yoga Sutra and the commentary, they deal the same way. So whatever is klesha is something that binds you. Tatha klesha karma nivritti. By the practice of yoga, you become free from the kleshas and karma. So what is bondage? Something that pushes me again and again into the cycle of rebirth. If you don't want to talk about rebirth, if you want to talk about our current life, the life that we can experience and verify, we can take it as that which makes me more and more helpless with respect to my subconscious mind, with respect to my unconscious mind. Whatever makes me more and more helpless with respect to my reactions to situations, whatever situations I face in life, what situation I face in life is not in my control most of the times. What will I see when I get out of the house is not in my control. When I go for a walk, whether the street dogs are going to be friendly with me or just barking or they are going to jump on me is not under my control. Right? We just do some prayer for Bhairava and get out, hoping that we will not be mauled by some street dog in India. Um, So we don't know. What I will face, I don't know. When I'm going to meet a person, whether this person is having good intentions towards me or bad intention towards me, I don't know. I will never know. I will only know after observing and studying for some time. Even a person who is constantly been known to cause trouble for me might behave nicely one fine morning. A person who has always been friendly and nice and helpful for me might end up harming me at some other day. So things are always changing. So what I will meet, what life will bring to me based on my prarabdha, I will not know. A broad tendency. We can probably have a broad trend with astrology and other things and with some intuition. We can have a broad trend with some analysis, information, observation. We can have a broad, it can be like this. Like we can have a broad idea, but we can definitely, specifically, we cannot know, right? But having faced which a situation, how I will respond to that, that is something which can be to a great extent under my control. How I will respond to something and how much ability is dependent on how much ability I have, or, or how much mastery, how much of self mastery I have over my organs of action, over my faculties of thinking, over my emotions and expression, and over my ability to deal with inner turmoil, and over my ability to stay committed to whatever I have committed to my purushartha or my goal or my objective for that situation, and my ability to stay committed to my values, my clarity about staying committed to my values. All these things will determine how much mastery I have over my reaction to a given situation. Right? So that is what this Daivi Asuri Sampath is about. So developing the divine qualities will give me more freedom. Means the more divine qualities I develop, the less I will be helpless in facing situations. The more I am giving in to the demonic compulsions, the more I will be stuck within patterns. The patterns will start ruling my life more. Not only the external patterns, also my internal patterns. And you become very predictable and you become very vulnerable. Wherever you feel vulnerable, it's a sign of weakness, it's a sign of bondage. And there, that vulnerability is a result of some kind of a asuri sampath that has been encouraged for some time in the past, has led to my current vulnerability, has led to my current weakness, my current helplessness with respect to anything, my current helplessness with respect to food, my current helplessness with respect to human relationships, my current helplessness with respect to financial condition, or my current helplessness with respect to uh, following a right conduct or ability to pursue the virtues. If whatever helplessness I experience in my life is the result of encouraging the asuri sampat, the non-divine qualities over the divine equivalent in that domain of life. So vimokshaya means the liberating. Whenever I adopt the divine qualities in a domain of life, I will experience more inner freedom. I'm being very specific here. The point is inner freedom. It is not the ability to do whatever you want. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. Freedom is the ability to not come under the pressure to do what you don't want. We'll put it like that. Though in Bhagavad Gita, the liberating here means Sattva Shuddhi and the purification of the intellect to the extent where I am able to understand the truth of myself, jnana, which is moksha. Right? So that's what here liberation means. But I am giving a extended definition which you can verify as a everyday reality. For that, I'm saying experience of the freedom to stick to your inner commitment when you are faced with challenges, right? That is a certain experience of freedom. So you experience freedom by not being affected by situations, by not being thrown off balance by challenges. A kind of a functional freedom. This functional freedom is the result of inner freedom. And the level of inner freedom gets deeper and deeper according to the level of clarity in jnana, in atma jnana, and all that. For example, when you study a text called Tattva Bodha, they always say one of the benefits of self knowledge is paratantra nivritti, not being emotionally dependent on external conditions for one's happiness, and dakshata prapti, skillfulness, a kind of a natural skillfulness. Whatever you set yourself to do, you will have very less obstacles from your own mind. And if any quality needs to be developed, it will be absolutely easy to develop that and go through the discipline required for that, because you are completely free from your inner demons, right? All that comes, right? Okay, so in this context, the divine demonic should be understood in terms of one's own level of liberation, something that leads to one's liberation and one's freedom, and freedom from helplessness, freedom from weakness, freedom from vulnerability. So that's what it is. And freedom from being stuck with patterns of thinking and action, and same situations, inability to extricate oneself from a situation. So all these are the result of demonic qualities, this unhealthy attachments and all that, right? So we can understand in this way, it is not about gods and demons and about some afterlife, and like you see in those horror movies, something breaking the ground and coming out with horns, demonic. It's not like that. These are all symbolic ways of putting things, but it's basically binding you. Anything that binds you more and makes you more helpless is demonic. That is how it is. The definition is. That is why sometimes, the so-called purity can also be a problem. Not understanding the contextual relevance of ritualistic purity, for example. This is one of the problems I have seen both in myself and in many very disciplined spiritually people with a very religious lifestyle. I've seen them, they have this compulsion to maintain a certain ritualistic purity, and the whole identity is built over that. So because the entire identity comes from that, when they are faced with situations where they cannot maintain, they become very restless. And then routine, yeah, discipline. There is a point beyond which discipline can become a bondage. What is discipline for one context can become a block for progress in another context. So we must know when to exercise a certain discipline and when to drop and be flexible. So that comes when my self definition does not come from my discipline, when my self definition does not come from my you know from my commitment to purity or certain values that I have. I don't define myself from that. I embrace those values because they are useful for purity of mind, but my self definition doesn't come from that. No? Deriving one's self definition based on discipline and values is good up to a point. When you are a kid, in spirituality, when you're just growing up, it's good to have an identity. You are a, like in any growth, like how we have in our physical body, childhood, teenage, and all that. So you say, you develop an identity around late childhood and teenage. You develop an identity. I am this. This is what I am. So you start developing an identity. It's important when you're growing up. It's important because without the identity acting as a fulcrum, we cannot develop a lot of beneficial qualities around it. So that's all right. But one has to grow out of it. One has to grow out of it and start seeing the value of the values and start seeing things for what they are and start seeing oneself with more objectivity and not be stuck in one kind of a identity game. Then you keep on. That's not a sign of advanced intelligence. The more advanced a person is, the more flexible one is. The more you are sure about something, the more you will be flexible about it, right? So that's why we see, after playing all these identity games and ego games all the life, when somebody becomes a grandparent, why grandparents are always very lenient with their children, with their grandchildren. While they were parents, they were not very lenient with their children. So they were very strict with the children and they were very ruthless. And when they become grandparents, the children of their children, they are very lenient towards them. They are pampering them and all that. Why? Because they see over a period of time, they learn to see what is really important. That wisdom that comes with age, you learn to relax about a few things. At the same time, not too relaxed so that you lose track. You are relaxed so that you are not stuck, but you are not too relaxed in order to lose track. That flexibility that comes from wisdom, that also it's part of nurturing the divine qualities. So bondage in anything is a problem. Bondage with tamoguna is a problem. Bondage with rajoguna is a problem. When sattva-guna is developed and when sattva-guna is when the sattva-guna related things are approached in a rajasic way, then it becomes binding. So that bondage thing comes from rajoguna. Rajoguna is that anything that is motivated by ego and identity. When I try to derive an identity from being sattvic, then I am having a rajasic approach to a sattvic context. Then that sattva becomes binding, right? Okay. So what I have to see, the marker for a divine quality is my approach to this situation on the divine track or not divine track. Like that we can think. No? In any situation, when I'm having an approach, an attitude towards the situation, at the core of all my actions and thinking is my background attitude. So how do I check my background attitude in a situation as being divine or non-divine? I have to see, with this kind of an attitude, if I approach the situation, am I going to be more stuck, or am I experiencing more being stuck and I am helplessness, or am I experiencing more freedom, flexibility, and knowledge? Is it principle at the cost of practicality and knowledge, or is it knowledge that is not disturbed, that is knowledge that is available on tap, on call, the knowledge that is available in the moment, that spontaneity, that intelligence, that fully assimilated knowledge comes as a spontaneous intelligence. In any situation, an expert is always more relaxed because that intelligence to respond to a given situation comes instantaneously, comes spontaneously from that, and that wholesome understanding of the situation just, it comes spontaneous. So great saints, when you have seen in their life, they have displayed this tremendous sense, kind of spontaneity when it comes to addressing situations of dharmic dilemma. There have been a lot of examples when you read the lives of Sri Kanchi Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, and you see the lives of so many other saints, Ramatirtha, and there was some other person. Uh, these great saints and sages who have always been exemplary guiding stars in our culture, they have always displayed that tremendous intelligent in a spontaneous way to address any situation of dilemma. While you see the normal religious people who are committed to discipline, otherwise very nice people, wherever they have shown too much rigidity, these saints have always urged, moderation, and they have always urged flexibility, given an example of where to be flexible and where to be strict, right? So we have seen that. So in that train of thinking, while remembering that divine liberates and the non-divine binds, with that as a fundamental guiding principle, we will look at two divine qualities which I find is very essential for our current age and which I feel is missing. See, there is this compassion, forgiveness, purity, freedom from malice, and excessive pride, freedom, speaking the truth, ahimsa, all those things are there. We've been hearing them all the time. But there are two things here. One is Teja, chapter number 16, shloka number 3 comes Teja Kshama Dhritihi Shaucham Adroho Na Atimanita Bhavanti Sampadam Daivim Abhijadasya Bharata. Right? In that shloka, two qualities, Teja, Dhriti. And Shaucham, when I was looking at the commentary of Sri Ramanujacharya, he has a very good point. Purity, definition of purity, that which allows me and makes me qualified to perform my spiritual duties. That's a very, my that qualifies me to perform my spiritual rituals. That's a fantastic guiding point. So purity is always connected to a purpose. What kind of purity? What level of purity? Suppose we are talking about gold, 22 karat gold to 24 karat gold. If I want to make ornaments, 24 karat gold will not do. I need 22 karat gold, right? At least 22 karat gold in order to be able to make ornaments that will be strong enough. And uh, then there are 18 karat and other things. But yeah, generally in our country, 22 karat, right? So purity is always tied to a purpose. If I'm going to perform a surgery, a certain kind of physical purity is required. I have to use that antibacterial soap or whatever, and then all that sanitizer, and then they come with. I don't need that kind of sterile hands for eating my food. I need to wash my hands, yes, but I don't need to wash my hands and put sanitizer like a surgeon, right? So that becomes unhealthy. If I am living in an over sanitized apartment, and if I am living under over sanitized conditions and everything, then I start breeding super bugs in my home. So that becomes a problem. So purity is always tied to the purpose. So the shaucham, that what Shastra talks about, Ramanujacharya says shaucham is that which that kind of purity that qualifies you to be ready for doing the puja, etc., the rituals, the worship, puja, your nitya karmas and other things. So it is not simply physical purity, it is also astral purity. It is astral means energetic purity. Energetic purity is something that we will understand only when we live according to the certain traditional recommendations from the scriptures, and also with a certain subtle sense of understanding, because many aspects of energetic purity normal will not make sense for normal sensory perception. I will give a small example. In our ashrams and in Brahmin households, we follow a certain system called this pat HL, like that we say. We separate foods, keep foods according to their categories separately. Curds, yogurt, curds, ghee, milk, they all will be separate. Suppose if I am handling a pot of rice or some dal or chapati and things like that, when I have to touch the curds or ghee or oil or milk, if I have to touch that, I have to wash my hands before touching that. Now that is a completely ritualistic kind of a purity. It makes no sense. If you see from normal five senses, it makes no sense. Yeah. And cooked food in many houses, when they are very strict, cooked food they will not keep in the fridge. Then the whole fridge becomes ritualistically impure. Like that, there are a lot of things. For example, when somebody with periods is walking by, they will ask them to close the door of the puja room. Close the door of the puja room, and then they walk. And they will maintain energetic purity and isolation. One is for giving them rest, and also is for not mixing different energies in the house. If you go to a house where, let's say, if you go to a salon, they wash your hair and everything. You go to a 5-star salon, they wash your hair and everything. Still, without taking a bath and changing all your clothes, you are not supposed to drink even water. Right? You're going to the saloon and straight going to the office, and then on the way finishing your breakfast or lunch. People do that. We don't do all that. There is absolutely no ritualist. You say, oh, it's a 5-star salon, it's very clean, it's all that, and there is no, they have this. No, if you enter a salon, you have to take bath. I cannot enter the puja room. The same definition also comes for food. What food is good for eating? You will see in Bhagavad Gita, food that is fit for offering to the Lord. Fit for offering to the Lord has certain characteristics, certain qualities. If the food is not fit for offering to the Lord, I cannot eat it. It's always tied to that. So the entire religious ritualistic culture is built around what is most beneficial for me. It is not to please the God, but that becomes a context for me to stay committed to what is good for me. So it is always connected to that. It's like telling in India we have in the compound wall, they will put one picture of a mosque, one church, or some Jesus or something, and then there will be some Ganesha or some other deity, Shiva, something will be there, so that people will not go and pee on it, or they will not spit on it. So the wall will remain clean. So everybody will respect the religion. If I don't respect the other religion, if you put only Hindu, probably the other two guys will spit on it and do everything on it, because they are known to desecrate Hindu. These monotheistic guys are known to desecrate anything that is Hindu. That has been the history for 2000 years. So they put theirs also, so that they will also respect the wall. But we don't know about human hatred. It's possible that this, but Hindu will not go and desecrate that, because for a Hindu everything is holy. Jesus is another Devata. Everything is a way to the same Paramatma. That's what we have been studying in Bhagavad Gita. That's what, Akashat patitam toyam yada gacchati sagaram sarvadeva namaskaraha keshavam prachigacchati. That's what we have been studying and learning, been told since our childhood. So we respect everything equally. So it works for a Hindu, but I don't know how it works for the other guys. So, but I have seen these walls painted with all the three religion things, or some Buddha or something on that. I have seen these walls uh, relatively cleaner than the other walls. So whenever we tie to spiritual or a religious commitment, we tend to respect it more, and that becomes useful for us to take care of ourselves also. But that is not the only reason. But that is a wonderful method. It's a wonderful psychological tool to do that. Right. So having said that, we will move to the two qualities that I wanted to discuss. One is dhriti, another is tejaha. Tejaha, they say, Tejasvi, this person is very bright, Tejas. Here the Acharyas say that Tejas is not, it's fantastic. He says, Pragalbhyam na tvagata deeptihi. It is the vigor. It is the inner power that you experience, the intensity to apply yourself to something, and the presence that you command. It is not the shining of the skin. When somebody puts a lot of makeup, and there was one of these Babas, very famous gurus, he has a makeup man to take care of his makeup to look nice for the camera, because it's required with all the lights. You have to put some makeup, otherwise it will show, it will exaggerate the blemishes of the skin, and it can also affect the skin. Being always under shooting, this person is so this viewer, a friend of mine, said, "Oh, look at him! He's so bright. He's so tejasvi." They say somebody is looking very bright. They say, "Oh, they look very tejasvi," especially when they are of a light skin. When they are very when somebody is a dark skinned, usually they don't say, but when somebody is a light skin, because of our colonial hangover, we say that whoever has a light skin, white skin is Tejasvi. So it is not that. It's not having a nice skin. Then every supermodel will be a Tejasvi. So it is the vigor. Tejaha means the vigor and the intensity, the force that we experience. So when we want to apply ourselves to something, how we are able to command that intensity, how we are able to command that inner power immediately being available for the task. And also the presence, when we enter a space, if we have more vigor, we are less likely to be taken for a ride or dominated by the negative elements there. I will not say that we will dominate the place, because that is not the goal of being a Tejasvi. Is not to be a dominating person in a place, because it is always combined with what is called as lajja. You should always khrir, achapalam lajja says, so we should always contain our force. Whatever is the force that we have, we should not throw it around. We should not throw around our prana, throw around our vigor. We should not throw around our presence in a place to dominate the place. we say the extroverts and all that. No? So I am going there, I am going to make an impact. So the spiritual approach, the divine quality is not to make an impact. My goal is not to make an impact. My goal is to stay committed to my values, and my goal is to stay committed uh, to my goals and to my objectives, and to keep one pointedness and not to be carried away. That is my goal. My goal is not to influence others and make an impact. Unless I am a teacher and there is a student in front of me who has asked for a teaching, then the teaching will automatically make an impact if I am a Tejaha. So, Tejaha is not the brightness of look. I remember, when I was a kid, they gave me, they initiated me in Gayatri Mantra and all that. Said, when you do Gayatri Mantra, you will get so much of Tejas. You have to motivate the kid. So after doing, this Avani Avatam, we used to do this 1008 Gayatri. After doing 1008 Gayatri, I used to go and look in the mirror. Am I looking brighter today or what? Completely stupid. But it's okay for a kid. If I still keep doing that, then I'm a retard. But if as a kid, it's all right. So Tejaha, Acharya says very clearly, it is the inner vigor and it is not the shining of the skin, not about looking bright, shiny eyes and all that. Others may say that no, we don't care for that, but that's not the point. That's what he says. And Dhriti. Dhriti in English is translated as fortitude. Dhriti is a very important quality we need in order to not be hijacked by the adharma that surrounds us. Extremely important for our current times and for the future. This quality of dhriti that we will have to develop. How to develop dhriti? This dhriti, Acharya says in his commentary, a particular function of the mind which removes the tedium of the body, the tiredness of the body and organs when they become exhausted, and being rejuvenated, by which the body and the organs do not feel any fatigue. And in another commentary, another Acharya says, Ramanujacharya says, it is the ability to stick to one's values and one's dharma and one's commitment even when faced with extraordinary challenges. You remember I told an example of Vaishnavite saint who said, why are you going and disturbing the Lord in the temple for the sake of our food? Is he running a restaurant? You know. So I told, right, do not practice mantras in a way to get things done. Don't indulge in performance spirituality. We have discussed it in one of the classes, right? So no matter what situation it is, I am only going to stay committed to my surrender. That would be an example of Dhriti, right? That is the explanation given by one Acharya. So we combine these two, and Dhriti is something that operates on many levels. Dhriti at the body level comes from the practice of Hatha Yoga asanas. The various Hatha Yoga techniques that prepare you for asanas and the pranayama that combines with that, mudras, bandhas, etc., all that put together, the entire Hatha Yoga package gives dhriti at the body and the vitality level. Yeah? So we have a Yoga Sutra that says, by the success in the practice of asanas, one is not affected by the pairs of opposite. Athat dvandvan anabhigataha. Heat and cold, pleasure and pain, pleasant and unpleasant. Your system is not thrown off balance. I will put it like that. And pranayama will make sure that your organs of action and to some extent your organs of perception cannot get hijacked. No situation can compel a response from you. No situation can compel a helpless response from your system. You cannot be forced to respond in a certain way. So that mastery comes from pranayama. Because unless the prana is excited, the organs will not move. When my prana is under control, all my organs are under control. And ability to tune to that point where the prana moves in the body, I can immediately withdraw a response as it arises in my system. When there is a response, it arises. If I am not able to control, there will be a lot of inner turmoil when I am controlling at the level of action. I don't act on it, but I will experience a lot of inner turmoil. But if I have done enough pranayama and japa, and especially pranayama combined with japa, it's called sagarbha pranayama. If I have done that, and regulating my intention in the context of pranayama, if I have done that, and to certain extent I am able to turn the current of prana from downward to upward, if I have done that, there will be a, there will be an excellent level of ability to exercise a choice at the point where a stimulus is invoking in me a response. So the inner turmoil will not be there. I may consider something as injustice and something that completely warrants an angry response, but I can decide whether to now get angry or not. I can decide whether to get involved in it emotionally or not. I can decide whether to act on it or not. It's like Swami Vivekananda's tongue going dry when Ramakrishna Paramahamsa placed that piece of jaggery on his tongue. His tongue went dry. They say that's pratyahara. It's a kind of a pratyahara. It comes from pranayama, the ability to have a mastery over prana. So practice of hatha yoga gives you dhriti, that fortitude at the level of the body and prana and vitality and the organs level. And dhyana gives you the dhriti at the level of chitta. Chitta ekagrata coming from meditation, either based on visualization or concept, ideation, contemplation, and concentrating on sound. Practice of laya based meditations like nada yoga and all that, Omkara dhyana, this laya based practices, they give you a certain level of fortitude in the chitta where a sense faculty will not invoke a habitual response from the chitta. I can decide whether to give this, whether to get interested in that or not. I can have a control over my flow of attention. If I see my attention being pulled in a certain direction, I will be able to stop it right there and bring it back. At the level of movement of intention, at that level it will be possible. So chitta ekagrata, that comes, the ability for dharana, I will say, that comes from this practicing concentration and other meditative practices. And dhriti in attitude, that is where the main detail is. The fortitude in your attitude, that is where study of shastra and clarity and commitment to one's purushartha comes in. There is a shloka in Bhagavad Gita, Nischayatmika buddhihi ekeha kurunandana. The one of cultivated understanding will have, that will be only one. He has no choice. The more clarity you have, the less choice you have. So the more is my clarity about something, there is no choice. When I see very clearly this is what it is, there is no choice, then conflicting situations cannot disturb my attitude towards and my commitment towards what I want to pursue. So that is dhriti. That allows me to stay committed inside. That inner commitment will not get disturbed even when my resources are not available. So here he says, tiredness of the limbs and the body, that vritti, that quality of the mind that can immediately get back on, get back on your feet. You may be tired and exhausted, but there is this modification in the mind that will make you get back on your feet. Shri Madhusudana Saraswati says it is a no, it is especially seen in Kshatriyas, in the warriors. For example, we can see this in this vigor, the immediate availability of energy to get back on your feet even when you are tired, to get back that vigor to act even when you are totally exhausted, coming from the inner resource of inner commitment and value and the dedication that we have, and inner dedication, determination, commitment, and the commitment to the value and to the goal. The moment you realize that this, I have to do this, the moment you remember that purpose, immediately the body and your organs and your sense organs and your body and your is filled with that energy. Immediately you feel energetic and you're ready to do it. It's something like this. When somebody, for example, we can see this in a mother. A mother is very tired from office and she's just sitting, she just wants to relax. I don't want to do anything, I'm very tired of so much work I had. All that is required for the baby is to cry. One crying sound, where all the tiredness goes, God only knows. Instantly the mother's system is up, right? That is commitment from inside. I'm talking about good mothers. Now in Kali Yuga we have very weird mothers who are who are known to not take care of the child and all that. But a classical mother, generally a classical mother, a traditional mother, will immediately get that vigor in her system. No matter what is her age, no matter how tired it is, somehow she will get the vigor. When somebody, you can also see that in people who are, the missionary zeal, they want to do something for society. When they see that their community, their nation, and their people are in an emergency situation, there's an urgent situation, no matter how tired they are, how sick they are, immediately you can experience that. The dhriti is that quality of mind that arises out of clarity, commitment, and determination and dedication. That quality of mind that results from all that, which is strong enough to invoke an energetic response in the body, even when one is totally exhausted, to get back on the feet and act on the direction and do what one must have to do to bring energy into that body. That is dhriti. So that is what Sri Shankaracharya says, and that helps us to stay committed to our dharma even when faced with great obstacles and challenges. And you see that in warriors, because uh, you can see that in all the Visishta Seva medals that we have in army. It is especially this Kshatriyatva, this quality is especially uh, found in greatly in Indian army. We have these Paramveer Chakra stories and all that. You can see this dhriti, how they are able to commit themselves to their platoon, to their comrade, the people who are fighting with them, to their company, to their fellow soldiers, right? And how they are able to stay on the stay with the focus and the determination until their goal is achieved, right? So once that point is crossed, then after that they relax and fall down, and they are they either succumb to their injuries or they are taken to the hospital in the treatment and all that. But when they are on the battlefield in the front line, no matter what happens, at the with a bunch of bullet wounds, they are able to pull themselves up and stay focused on the enemy line, right? So this is something that you see in army. So that Madhusudana Saraswati Bhagwan mentions in his commentary. It's found in a great measure in Kshatriyas. Yeah. So this dhriti. These are all inspiring, but in our everyday life, dhriti is not to get carried away, not to lose motivation because you are not seeing some results, not to lose your whenever you experience tiredness, because there is not somebody constantly pumping you. So let's say you are attending a retreat or a yoga camp or something, and a satsanga, you feel very motivated. Everything, you are able to meditate longer, you are able to maintain the routine, the discipline and everything. But when you go back to your everyday life, all the situations are so tiring, but you are not able to command the same level of involvement in the sadhana. So the involvement in the sadhana can come from this dhriti. So developing this dhriti is not something that you can say, okay, I will have dhriti. No, this dhriti comes from continuous application of oneself to swadhyaya, tapas, and all that will bring the dhriti. This is the result of all that. So one can check one's dhriti. If I am able to remember my commitment, my spiritual commitment, immediately I am able to overcome that laziness and that carelessness, pramada, alasha, avirati, all that. If I'm able to overcome that and immediately feel that motivation, feel that power and the force and the vigor to get up and get ready and do my practice. So that is dhriti. So this we need to develop. If I have to uh, pull myself out of unhealthy situations, dhriti, you know oh, I feel so helpless, I feel so weak, I feel so tempted. That is also a kind of tiredness, weakening of the will. Immediately the moment you remember your goal, your guru, like that, you can see it's a kind of a smriti, it's a kind of a remembrance. You see what is your most vital, central, and what is your core strongest motivating factor in your sadhana. What motivates you instantly? No, it takes some little bit of analysis. You understand that and you connect to that. You can use a small ritual that will connect. For example, uh, let us say uh, you are very emotionally connected to the goal and everything, and you are greatly inspired by a Mahatma, Swami Vivekananda, or Ramana Maharshi, or some great personality, or your Ishtadevada, right? So let us say you are having a wallpaper. You have that wallpaper in your phone, for example, right? And if you want to go into do some browsing or whatever, you feel tempted to do something. So before going there, you just look, you feel you want to relax and all that. So before that, what you do, you just look at that. You look at that picture, or you have the picture of your guru. Whenever you feel off track, just look at that picture. Connect to that moment when you were initiated, or when you met her last. Immediately, that smriti will invoke that inner commitment that you have, and the vritti will come and take over your body, and you will be able to implement the right course of action instantaneously, right? So like this, we can create a few rituals that will invoke the dhritti that we already have, and by doing this, by repetition, by abhyasa, we will be able to improve this quality of dhritti. And tejas is improved by tapasya, right? So I wanted to discuss these 2 points, tejas and dhriti, as two important qualities, divine qualities, that are very useful for us current situation and for our future. Okay, so it's already 9 minutes past 7. If there are any questions, you make a note of it, and we will address those questions in the next class. With this, I will finish this session. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Thank you.